Hey guys, my name is Isabel. I'm part of the Full Steam Ahead group. I'm here to just show you a little bit about Thunkable. You can see in the URL. If you are already familiar with Thunkable, that is great. You can most likely skip this entire video. I will be sharing a bunch of useful links with you guys through a document, so just keep a lookout for that. If you are not aware of Thunkable, here I am to just give you an introduction of the capabilities that it has. It's really good for prototyping. If you have no coding experience, that is totally fine. Thunkable is pretty user-friendly, and there is so much that you will learn. And if you do have some coding experience, it'll definitely be helpful, but it is not required. Thunkable doesn't use actual lines of code, it uses blocks, which I will show you a little bit later. But let's get started. So when you create your Thunkable account and you create a project, I listed mine as demo, you'll see right here. This is what you'll see. You'll see your screen one. On the right, you'll see all the properties of what you've selected. So you notice that I've selected screen one. So these are all the properties of the screen. And for each different component, there are a bunch of different properties that you just need to look around and play with it a bit. So that's what's on the right, all the properties and whatnot. On the left, you can see components. Components are basically just things that you drag onto the screen. It allows you to interact a little bit more, and you can also see the components on the top. So there are visible components and there are invisible components. Visible components are obviously ones that the user can see. Invisible ones are not, but they're still part of the programming. So you can scroll through them all, just look around, or you can search them up. What I recommend to be very familiar with are rows and columns. I can either just search up rows and you'll see it in the layout, or I can manually scroll through it. And here they are. So when you want to add a component to your screen, you just click on it and you drag it onto the screen and it'll appear. Notice here, and then also notice at the over here where you see all your components, and it's underneath the screen. Another useful component are columns. When you drag components, you notice sometimes this blue line, and that's where it's going to be placed. You can also just put it onto the component list itself. So I'll put that right there, and you'll notice that it is right here, one on top of the other. Now, the issue with Thunkable is that it is sometimes hard to orient different types of components, so that's why you want to use rows and columns. You can change the names at the top right by renaming it. You can delete them, you can duplicate them, and you can save as data viewer layout, but you probably won't do that. It's really nice to rename some of your components. Of course, you don't need to rename your rows and columns, but when you have different text inputs and labels and buttons, it's really nice to rename them. So, when you want to put other different components, you just drag them. For example, a button, you can either drag it onto the column or you can go underneath and it'll go beneath the column. So the names are a little bit misleading. When you have a row, it actually just puts the components to the left and the right, not actually like a row. And then when you have a column, the columns go top and bottom, so you can stack them on top of each other. So that is what you use with rows and columns. If you chose not to, you can just add a screen, and this is what it'll look like. Say I want to put a label, it'll just go right in the middle. And if I want to add another one, you can basically just only go top and bottom. So if you want to kind of orient things differently, that's when you want to use rows and columns. Now, when I go back to screen one, I just click on it, and once again here you can see all of the new components that I've had, and which are in like the nesting of each of them. If I want to change the name of the label, like labels, users won't edit them. So you can just change the text right here. I can label it to something else, maybe just say hello. I could change the other label, maybe, the good old classic hello world. But yeah, so that's that. Text inputs are components that users can actually input text, very self-explanatory. You have buttons, users can click buttons, list of viewers, and you can see so many different types of components, different types of organization tools, different features. They're all in the left, and I suggest you to look around and play with them. If you want to change the hint, which is like what users will see before they click on it, it's also right here in the properties. You can change the hint and maybe say like name, and then they'll know to put their name. It's just like helpful for guiding. Another useful property that a lot of components have are the height and width. If you don't like how big it looks, usually you can change the height. There are 3 things you can click on, but I think an easier one is just the absolute size. Of course, a lot of times you want to use the fit contents or fit container, but just play around with that. So the absolute size of the height, I can change it to 40. I can change it to 200. It's just how much space it'll take up. I can also change the width to do something, but I kind of want it to fill out the entire space, so I'll call it to fit the container. But of course, with labels, you can still change the height and the width depending on what you want. You might also notice that these components are too close together. You want to put a little bit of margin. Well, there's a property for that. And it's right here, margin. You want to margin the top, bottom, left, right. I want some margin between these 2 components. So I want one from the top, I want a margin on the bottom, just maybe 10. And there you go, you have a margin. You can change the colors of things. For example, for the button color, you can change the background color to be something else. Maybe I want it to be this mustard orange or yellow. So yeah, there we go. We changed the button color. You can also change the font size of different things. Once again, just play around. There are loads of things that you can change. Okay, so now once you have all of your components visible to the screen, you can actually use blocks and give them some functions that they can do. These are just at the top. So blocks, you will notice a bunch of different labels, and playing with them, just look around with them. A lot of them might be a little bit confusing. You don't have to use everything, but yeah. So for example, maybe I want to click the button that I have on my screen and I want to go to screen 2. Well, here are also all my components. Here's my button. This is why it's really good to call to name your button different things, because then you can know what you're clicking on. For example, maybe I want to, when you click the button, maybe I want to navigate to somewhere, to screen 2, and that's on control. You can just navigate it to screen 2. You can also initialize variables that you want to use between screens, because that's what variables are for. There are 3 types of variables: app, store, cloud. If you want to use app variables, you're going to have to initialize it to something, say just a text. You can use those between screens. I can give you resources of what the 3 different variables are, but that's that. There are also invisible components that you might want to use. For example, you have alerts. So maybe the user does something, you want to show an alert. All you got to do, drag to the screen. It won't actually show up on the screen because it's invisible. It'll show up at the bottom, and here's your alert. So maybe when you use your alert, when you click on it, and if you want to show the alert, you can call it something, maybe like an incorrect password, and then you can change the confirmation button, cancel button. You can take out the cancel button and just keep a confirmation button. And that's just what the alert is. And when you want to use the blocks, all you have to do is, when the alert is shown, do something. Or don't do something, you don't have to do something. But there are a bunch of things that Thunkable offers. If you are unsure what it does, all you gotta do is you hover over the component or the block, and it'll give you a brief description of what they do. You gotta notice that some of the blocks go top to bottom, while others or just from the side. That's where you like initialize it, usually to a variable or put it somewhere. So that's what Thunkable does. If you want to store actual data somewhere, that's where I would recommend to use Firebase. Firebase is a separate program that allows you to have a database. You can store a bunch of information and whatnot onto it. And I will also give you tools for how to set up your Firebase account and create a database. Of course, you do not have to do any of this. I really just recommend playing around with everything. Once again, look through the resources I send you guys. I know this did not cover nearly like not even like 10% of what Thunkable does, just very surface level things. So I wish you guys all the best of luck. Really, all you got to do is just play around, gain experience, and look for resources because there are so many resources out there, which I will be providing some of them, just places to look for. If you cannot figure out what to do or how to accomplish something that you want to achieve, just look at the resources. Thunkable offers documents and a community thing where you can ask questions to other people. There are tons of resources. I cannot emphasize that. There is basically probably a solution for every issue that you have. Um, but yeah, anyways, so this wraps up the introduction to Thunkable. I wish you guys really all the best of luck when you are creating your prototype. And just remember to have fun. Bye!